Good morning. My name is Dr. Dave Ubelauer. I'm an instructional designer and an instructor with Rutgers Department of Teaching and Learning with Technology. On behalf of the Rutgers University Online Learning Conference, I'm delighted to introduce both Carrie Locker and Anna Kern. We are pleased to have them present De-Escalating Student Frustrations, the clear framework from InsideTrack. During the presentation, the presenters have asked that you please forum to ask any questions of the presenters themselves. At the end of the presentation today, there will be a short survey displayed. Any feedback that you can provide is greatly appreciated. So now, Carrie, please take it away with yourself and Anna.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, David. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you all. And if we can have some of the slides up, because I do want to walk through the agenda for everyone so we know what to expect during this wonderful workshop. It will be one where we will have breakout rooms at a certain point, so letting you know about that. And really what we're looking to do is introduce you to a framework that we have been able to implement and train on and connect with our coaches and with our students to really be able to help support students, especially in times of crisis. So we want to share with you a little bit about who InsideTrack is and give you that context. We're going to go through what the CLEAR framework is, and that's going to be about 25 minutes. And then we're going to have a breakout room exercise for about 10 minutes. And we will have time at the end for a Q&A wrap-up, which will be about 5 minutes or so. And again, we want to direct folks to the discussion forum. We'll be monitoring that. If you have questions, please post them there. That's going to be the easiest place to share. And then just to also call it out, we are new to the on-air platform, I believe, like you all are. So it's really exciting. We did have a chance to do a training, but if something fails, we're all in learning mode, and that's okay. We're here to learn. One of the things that we wanted to do as an icebreaker, Anna, do you want to kind of talk through any of the rest of the frame and the icebreaker before we get started?
Yes, perfect. Thanks, Carrie. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Kern. I'm here with InsideTrack today. I'll be co-leading with Carrie, and I've actually trained about 20 of Rutgers staff, so I'm very familiar with your campus and all the amazing work that you all do. We wanted to just get a feel for who's in the room and also have a little bit of fun along the way too. So in the spirit of also utilizing the discussion forum, we'd love for y'all to post your name, your role. So whether you're a student, staff, faculty, and the question here is if you could have one food for the rest of your life, what would that be? So Carrie just posted those prompts in the chat and the discussion forum. Please respond there. We'd love to just get an idea of who you are and what you all like to eat. I'll start, and I know Carrie has an answer to this already queued up in her brain too. Again, Anna Kern, I'm here in Tennessee and y'all's trainer today. I love breakfast, so any sort of sourdough egg sandwich is just like my heart's calling. So, Carrie, what about you?
Yeah, Anna. Also, just to note, I'm based in Washington State, so we are across the country. And my favorite is brie. If I could have brie on a baguette, I think that I died and gone to heaven. And we've got some other folks joining and sharing. Pizza is always a good one. Cheese, yes. Cheese and brie. We got another brie lover. Love it.
Mussels, yes. Delicious. Sushi. Well, hopefully y'all have eaten breakfast or lunch because now we're going to get hungry. So thank you all for playing along. Please keep posting in the chat so we can continue to see who's in the room and what you all like to eat. That's fun for us. And then I'll take it back to Carrie. She's going to do a quick overview of who we are, and then we'll dig into the framework.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Anna. Just to kind of give some context, and you can go to the next slide. Anna, InsideTrack, we've been around for almost 2 decades now, and we just about a couple years ago became part of the Strata Education Network. And we were excited about that transition, especially as it allowed us to transition to a nonprofit status in the last year. And it really has put us in a position to connect with other solution providers in this space to really drive outcomes for students. And basically, what we're looking to do is improve and strengthen student success through education to employment pathways. And so Strata is able to do that in a number of different ways. They brought together the affiliate network, which we're part of, again, having solution providers that really work with higher education institutions to help with student outcomes. But they've also got a research arm working with Gallup to better understand the education consumer, if you will, and education market space to really understand what folks are looking for in their education. And then finally, we also have a philanthropic arm, if you're familiar with Strata. So they're looking to provide innovative grants to a lot of institutions that are, again, looking to drive completion rates and supporting students. Our big goal at InsideTrack is we envision a future where we are so successful in creating transformative experiences and inspiring others to push their own limits that our positive social impact results in 100 million people developing the mindset, abilities, and confidence to achieve greatness. And really what we like to call out is where we started and kind of cut our teeth in providing direct coaching services. In the last several years, we've moved into an opportunity where we're working with institutions in what we call a capacity building effort, and where we're providing training and working with the student support services at an institution and really helping them develop their own skills and mindset and framework in working with students. And so that's what you're going to get a glimpse of today, is a piece of that overarching capacity building training, and part of that is the CLEAR framework. So where did InsideTrack develop our coaching approach and methodology? Well, really it was in not only our research and our direct work with students. We've coached over 20 million students, and we have also a Bettinger-Baker study, I want to call it, evidence-based coaching, where we've been independently validated by a peer-reviewed research that was done at Stanford. And what's nice about that is it's put us in a position to, again, take our approach and methodology, work with institutions, and also it's helped us position us for managing and working with institutions where they might have grant funding that really requires an evidence-based approach to be able to integrate. So if there's an institution that is applying for a grant, and especially with our nonprofit status, we're really able to leverage that. So just finally, before we kind of get started in the rest of the CLEAR framework, I do like to call out that, again, we've partnered with all kinds of different institutions, you name it, community colleges, online. We've coached over 4,000 different programs, 2 million students, providing measurable, proven results of increased higher retention, increased net promoter scores, and then also improving college career readiness and application. So I think that I'm going to kick it back to Anna at this stage, and we're going to get started on our part of the CLEAR framework.
Excellent. Thank you, Carrie. And I posted both our website in the forum as well as the Bettinger-Baker link too. So if that interests you, please go into the forum to check that out as well. So again, today we're really talking about a framework that can support you in dealing with anyone that's in the heightened state. So this is absolutely applicable to students. This is also applicable to your kids, to your parents, to your partners, family members. So I saw, based off the chat, there were some folks here that are staff members. There's also faculty. So if this is helpful to think about it in your student relationships, that's great, but you can also apply it to your personal life as well. Ideally, this framework is great because the goal here is that we are listening to understand and remaining curious, and ensuring that the other person who's in a heightened state, whether that's anger, frustration, you name it, sadness, that they're really feeling heard, supported, and valued. So that is the goal here, and this framework can support you in doing that. So my goal is for you all to have a really clear understanding of what the CLEAR framework is, and allow you to listen first versus problem solve, take yourself out of the situation, and guide that other person to making an intentional decision. So that is the goal today. So here we have a few traps that we tend to fall into when we're responding to difficult situations. Sometimes we're too quick to solve the problem. Sometimes we just want to respond in general really quickly. Sometimes we take it personally, right? We make it about ourselves. Sometimes we can get defensive or dismiss those hard emotions, or even give cliched answers. All these traps are totally normal, right? We get into, oftentimes when someone is yelling at us or very upset with us, we tend to take on those emotions for ourselves, right? Our heart rate starts increasing, and we can get into that flight, fight, or freeze zone. So I want to normalize these reactions. I'd love for y'all to put in the chat, which trap do you tend to fall in? I know for me personally, I want to jump straight to problem solving mode, right? I want to just give a solution if someone's upset. Carrie says her too, yeah. So I'd love to hear, and again, just post in the chat, what do you all do? It looks like we got some other problem solvers in the room too. Yep. And I imagine you all do that because you're really good at your job, right? It's probably why you were hired, because you're good problem solvers. However, have any of y'all been been in a heightened state with a friend or a family member, and they start throwing solutions at you? How does that make you feel? Probably not so great, right? I know at the beginning of the pandemic, I had to go into a Walgreens. It was like early April. I was feeling really anxious and overwhelmed. I called my partner. He said, "Oh, Anna, just make sure you put your mask on, get your hand sanitizer." And that was not helpful for me, right? I didn't want solutions. I wanted just to be heard, right? So I think we can all think of times in our lives where people tend to jump straight to here, right? That problem solving mode, when really we just want to be validated. So again, these are very normal places to go. Here are some benefits to why this is helpful. So by using the CLEAR framework, students can really speak honestly and feel heard. You may be the only person that the student has shared their concerns or frustrations with. It also gives students the opportunity to verbally process, right? And your expertise really at Rutgers is going to be leveraged, right? By being able to provide valuable perspective and options for these challenging situations. InsideTrack says time and time again, we want to seek to understand instead of seeking to solve. This is easier said than done, I'll tell you that. But through the use of this established structure, you can actually open yourself up to greater presence, objectivity, creativity, and empowerment by doing this. So these are all the benefits. If you're not sold already, hopefully you're with us. And we're going to talk now without further time. You all can finally see the CLEAR framework. So here it is in all of its glory. I'm going to talk through this in a little bit more detail and also bring it to life with some student stories so you can see what this sounds like. C stands for confirm. This is really just active listening, right? We're repeating back what we're hearing. We're making sure we're on the same page with the student. L is legitimize. That's where we're really providing rational foundation to what that other person is saying, calling out that their opinion, their thoughts, their feelings are fair and valid. We have a little T in here, so just ignore that, the impact of that on the acronym itself. But we throw in a little transparency here so that we can call out who we are, what we're doing, and where we're going. Because we want to make sure we're doing that before we jump into asking a bunch of questions. Evaluate is just that. We're asking questions to understand what else is going on. And then, and only then, do we jump to response, right? It's funny because we tend to jump straight here, right? We want to go straight to a response. That's what you all mentioned you do. That's sort of the trap we all fall in. But these first few steps are very important before we get straight to a response. So I'd love to hear in the chat, just post, my question for you all is, why do you all think it's important to confirm and legitimize? Why do you all think confirming and legitimizing is important to someone who's upset? All right, to make sure the person knows you're listening. Yes, people need to feel heard. Validation. Yes, Deanna, these are great. Absolutely, right? Building trust. Anxiety isn't dismissed. Yeah. Ooh, you all know this stuff already, which is great. And you all may already be doing this. The goal of this framework too is to provide a little bit more intention and consistency. Again, so that when someone's coming to us upset, we can take a step back, right? Take a breath and lean on this framework to ground us in responding really effectively. Absolutely, it gives validation. It shows that it matters. And all of that can be really helpful in de-escalating the other person before you jump to asking questions or problem solving, right? So you might be wondering what this sounds like. And confirming and legitimizing, it doesn't take a long time. This can take just a few minutes. So an example I like to give, I was working with a fellow coach, a colleague who had a student who was so excited to start classes, filled out their application, got into the program, couldn't wait to get started. Finally, had to get going with a placement test that they had to take for a math class. And then all of a sudden, the student went totally rogue, right? The coach couldn't get a hold of them. They were non-responsive. Finally, the coach got a hold of the student, and the student said, "Oh no, I'm not going to do this school thing anymore. It's not for me. I don't want to take the placement test. I think that's ridiculous that I even have to take a placement test. I don't think school's for me at all," right? So they've totally just thrown their hands up. So the coach said, "Okay, I hear you. It sounds like the placement test, is frustrating. It's not something you want to do. It's totally fair that you feel that way. My role here as your coach, right, is to really understand what else might be going on. I'm going to ask a few other questions because I know, based off our previous conversations, how much this means to you. I know how motivated you were not that long ago. I know how driven you were to get this degree. So I just want to take a second to see what else is going on, right?" Then they asked a few questions, right? Tell me more about what's going into this decision. Tell me more about what you have on your plate outside of the placement test. And by giving the space, by providing that validation, the student then felt comfortable to open up. And really what happened is the student shared that she was actually agoraphobic and terrified to leave her home. It was not about the placement test at all. She did not want to actually drop out of school. She didn't want to leave her home to go to the testing center. So the coach and the student were able to brainstorm a solution and get the placement test online for the student in order to complete the test and get started. And the student was able to start and now is graduated from the program. So that's a great example of how, again, just confirming, legitimizing before you just go straight to, okay, you're frustrated, you don't want to do this program, that's fine, but we'll take you through the process of unenrolling, right? That could have easily been where the conversation went, but by taking these extra steps, by pausing and using this framework, the coach and the student were able to really support her and get to that root cause versus the symptom, right? We don't want to treat a broken arm with a Band-Aid, right? We want to really see and unearth what else is going on so that we can get to that root cause. So that is the clear framework. Again, we definitely want to put light to the importance of confirming and legitimizing in that transparency role statement. Again, the transparency is just calling out, this is who I am, this is why, this is what I'm going to do from here, right? I'm going to ask a few questions to understand what else is going on. That way, it's not jarring when you start asking the student some questions to understand more. I'll give one more example, a personal example, just so you can hear it in another context too. I was living in San Diego and I went camping in Mexico. I sprained my ankle. I got really terrible PT care and athletic training care, and moved back to Knoxville, Tennessee, where I am now. And it was years later after my incident, I'm still in a ton of pain and I'm even more frustrated, right? because I've gotten really bad care from the healthcare system. So I'm on the phone trying to find a new PT. I'm calling up this new office. The woman answers. I tell her my story, and she says, wow, I just hate that you're still in pain. I was like, me too, right? She's like, it's so fair that you'd be frustrated. I'd be frustrated too. I really hate that you're still in pain. That sounds so frustrating that you didn't get the right support you needed, right? Then she said, my role here, I'm going to ask you some questions about your insurance. I want to get you scheduled to come in for your eval, right? So she could have just jumped straight to that, but she actually validated me and made me feel so heard, right? I just started crying on the phone. I felt so supported in that moment. And that was the best PT care. I mean, I went to them for years after just because I really liked them, right? They're like, Anna, your ankle's fine. Please stop coming to this office. But it's an example of how just, again, that extra support can go such a long way and make that other person feel really valued. So again, here's some best practices. We want you all to, use this to support increasing your empathy, right? Making sure you're thinking from that student's perspective, taking yourself out of it. Oftentimes when people are really angry or frustrated, that just means that they care, right? And I think recognizing that passion, that frustration can actually mean passion is, I don't know, for me, that was always really helpful as a new coach when someone was really upset. Making sure you're hearing the obstacle and challenges in the student's language can be really helpful in just repeating that back to them. That way you're not throwing in your own assumptions or language into their story. We want to be mindful of our own feelings, right? If we start to get anxious or upset as well, just be mindful of that. Take some deep breaths, being extra mindful of tone, because that can really impact the conversation. We want to assume positive regard of that other person and try to remain neutral in that discussion. We always want to make sure that we're supporting records, right? So if this is the 10th student that day that's coming to you with a financial aid issues, we don't want to say, oh, Carrie, you're the 10th person today that's coming to me with this financial aid concern, right? There's a time and place to normalize, right? But we don't want to throw anyone under the bus. We want to be really mindful on how to support the institution and the student as well. So here we have it. If you have a pen and paper, or actually before we grab a pen and paper, I want you all to type in the chat, what are some common student concerns or frustrations? So just write in the chat, when you are working with a student who's upset or heightened, what are some of those concerns? And if you're a student yourself attending this webinar, please just talk about, you can use this as a time to highlight maybe friend concerns or family challenges. Yeah, finances, mental health, COVID, time management. Yes, I mean, imposter syndrome, that's a big one. Quantity of tasks, yeah. Not enough time. I'm seeing a lot about COVID. Yeah, balance. Yeah, time management is tough, right? Especially when all of our commitments and responsibilities have totally shifted the past year, right? Yeah, professors not being understanding. That comment of, that professor gave me a D, right? That language. Yeah, balancing employment with school demands. Yes. Okay, thank you all. I want you to make note of these. If you read one that you're like, ooh, yeah, that's a really hard one for me, or if the one you typed was especially one that you struggle with, I want you to just write that down on a pen and paper, or maybe a Google Doc. Write down the one that makes you the most uncomfortable. What is the situation or the frustration that you hear that makes you the most clammy, that makes you the most, nauseous, whichever one, because that's the one I want you all to practice. So we are going to give you all a chance to put this all into practice. The reason being is because if we can practice this with each other in this safe space, right, we're going to be more equipped and more geared up to do this effectively with our students. So you're going to write down the situation you want to practice. It could be what you put in the chat. It could be something else that came up for you. And here's what we're going to do. Our friend here is going to put us into breakout rooms. Before we do, here's your assignment, if you will. So one person's going to play a student and one person's going to play the coach, right, or the person using the CLEAR framework. And what you're going to do is the coach is going to practice just the first part of the framework. So you're just practicing confirm, legitimize. You're not going to be asking questions. You're going to be you're going to want to go here, I promise you, and you're going to want to go here, right? You're going to want to go straight to asking questions and straight to problem solving. But I want you to spend just the time confirming what you're hearing, using that active listening, repeating back the same language the person's telling you, legitimizing what you're hearing, right? Saying that's valid, that's fair. And then I want you to make a little bit of a transparent role statement. Hey, my role here as your faculty advisor, my role here as your journalism professor is I really want to support you and make sure you have what you need for success. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, right? And then you're going to stop and switch. So you're going to have 10 minutes total. That gives you 5 minutes each to practice. I want you all to keep an eye on the time. Once the other person's gone, after 5 minutes, you can switch. And again, you can let the person know, hey, I really want you to practice this financial issue that I come across a lot. And that's what the other person's going to role play, if you will.
Anna, also, if people have questions, they do have still access to the discussion forum. So feel free to ask us questions there that we can respond to as things might come up during the role play.
Yes, perfect. Any questions? Let's just see if there's any questions. Please post in the chat right now before we send you off to your rooms. I'll wait just 30 seconds. If anyone has a question on what we're doing, Carrie also has just posted in the discussion forum the instructions, so you can reference those as well. Okay. Last call for questions. All right. That's great. We'll open up the rooms right now. Welcome back, everyone. I got to practice with Amanda, which was sweet. So that was fun. Yes, it did go pretty well. Got a chance to dig into the framework and put that all in practice. I am very well aware that people have a lot of feelings around breakout rooms. So I know, or around role play roles, I know it can feel a little awkward to try it out, but that is often the best place to practice language. So thank you all for playing. We want to do a quick share back of how that went. So post in the chat what's one thing you're taking away from either the whole workshop altogether or in general that practice round. So I'll share my screen again so you can see this question. Susan said that was great. I love it. What made it great, Susan? Oh, there it is. Again, I'd love for y'all to post in the forum what's one takeaway from today's workshop. Role statement, yes. Yeah, those transparency role statements go a long way. Oh, there's some good shout outs in the chat. Specific application. Nice. Oh, Teresa's got a shout out about confirming and validating really well. Excellent. Nice. Yeah, tell me more. That's a great. Those 3 words will just totally change the conversation with your students, and also with your significant others, with your kids. Sounds like listening skills was nice to practice. Great. Oh, you all are dreamy. You're doing great. This is awesome. Amazing. So, and if you run out of time, that's totally fair. I know it's a pretty short session, so we had to be mindful of that. But thank you all again for really digging into the content and getting a chance to connect with each other. Sometimes it can be really cathartic to play the student, right? And to express some of those concerns. So I'm glad that was fun for you all. We want to open up the floor for questions. We have a little less than 10 minutes. So I would love for you all, any questions that are coming up for you that you're either student related or about the framework and how to apply it to your role. And you can use that discussion forum to help us, or post your questions in the discussion forum itself.
Anna, here's a question that I'm seeing. How do you train coaches to continue to remember this? Because a lot of times when we're in the moment, then it's like, okay, this is a new skill. Mm-hmm. How do I remember this skill to pause and stop? Yes. Are there any techniques that you share?
Yes, great question. So oftentimes visual reminders are great. If there's any visual learners in the room like me, that can go a long way. So I'll sometimes have clear just the words or the framework itself and have it on a sticky note on my laptop. That can be super helpful. Any sort of cues just to remember the framework, especially like you said, Carrie, when you're in the heat of the moment, it can be really hard to not go back into old patterns of behavior, right? So instead of problem solving, having that little reminder of either slow down or confirm and legitimize or use your role statement as a sticky can be really, really helpful.
There's another question that came up. Susan was asking how to deal with highly aggressive or defensive people.
That's a fun one. Yes, Susan. So this framework is designed just for that, right? So the confirm and legitimize is what you're really going to want to focus on when someone's really on edge, aggressive. And you want to make sure the conversation is productive too. And sometimes that means saying, I want to make sure this conversation is productive. Do you feel like it would be a better use of our time to reconnect later today or this week to make sure we're getting the most out of this time? Because some people, when they're in the heat of it, need to take a step back, right? And sometimes giving folks permission to do that can either have them say, no, you're right, let's dig in, or yes, you're right, I need to take a break, and then we can come back. Because often what happens in your brain, right, when you're in this flight, fight, or freeze zone, it's really hard to get into that rational thinking part of your brain, right? Because you're in the survival part. So in order to get there, you have to really calm down, right? And science actually shows that 30 minutes of a break can help you get back into that prefrontal cortex where you can actually be in more of a engaging social emotional regulation part.
Some additional questions. Cynthia and Emil were asking, how can you apply this same framework in asynchronous text, email, having a dialogue and discussion that way?
Yeah, and at InsideTrack, we do a lot of text and email coaching with our students. So the active listening, the confirm part, is just paraphrasing or repeating verbatim what you're hearing back from the student. So when Amanda and I were practicing, she said, I work with a lot of students that are having tech issues and they're really upset about the tech issues. So what we talked about is how could she use my same language that I said. So I said, oh, I'm really annoyed because I'm having issues getting into the portal. She said, and then she repeated back, okay, it sounds like you're annoyed because you're having issues accessing the portal. Is that right? What that does is it gives the person the chance to say yes, or gives them the chance to say, no, that's actually not it. There's this other issue, right? Because what often happens, and I'm sure y'all have seen this before too, by repeating back, it gives the person the opportunity to correct, and people like to correct. And it also, what we can discover is, oh, that's actually not about this issue. There's something else underneath, right? So it allows the opportunity for the other person to really dig into the root of the issue. Yeah, great question. So that, in terms of email, that can just be, copying and pasting or using specific words that the student said in their email or their text, and making sure you're using those intentionally, because we never want to assume or throw in our own language or feelings, because that can often make someone feel more heightened and make them not feel heard, right? If Carrie was like, oh, you sound really frustrated, Anna, and I wasn't frustrated, then I could maybe feel like, no, Carrie, I'm not frustrated. Then all of a sudden I get more upset, right? So being mindful of copying that exact same language can make sure that student feels heard and valid. And you can use the same, the same framework in those written interactions too.
Another question that's come up is, what do you do if a student simply disappears and is so frustrated that they stop communicating altogether?
Oh, yeah, those are sad ones, aren't they? So we often at InsideTrack have a communication plan. So we never want to like hound the student by any means. We want to give them the reminder and opportunity to engage as they feel comfortable. So we'll use phone, text, and email and send some nudges just to let them know, hey, we're here. Hey, we still care. The line is open if you ever want to reconnect, right? So often what will happen is folks, even from like a year or so ago, will re-engage just by knowing, oh, that person continued to show up even when I disappeared, even when I was angry. Because we don't know that these students aren't reading our messages. Often they are, and they are feeling supported in that moment and just maybe aren't in the space to respond. So I think often we feel really defeated when someone's not totally engaging or responding immediately. But don't, be sure to give yourself credit, because people often are really, really grateful for those messages and will let you know years later. I know we have about 3 minutes left. I wanted to highlight too, we have some really, really great stop out and drop out videos on our website, as well as a clear framework PDF and our online resource page. So
I'm putting those in the chat right now.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. You all should be able, that framework, if you want to print that out, laminate it, you can have that at your desk, keep it handy. I use it with my boyfriend all the time. So just know that these are helpful for any interaction with any person, which is all of us. We are all in such a heightened state right now. With the global pandemic, economic crisis, overdue civil rights movement, that doesn't even touch on what's happening in our personal lives, right? So we are very aware that it is hard to be in learner mode. It is hard to engage in a way that feels effective sometimes. And this framework can absolutely help you and that other person do that.
Anna, I'm also going to put in the chat just our emails if people ever wanted to ping us and had some questions that didn't come up.
Yeah, absolutely. Please reach out. We would love to hear from you. We have, and here's a quote too I wanted to highlight. Christine went through a 5-day training with me over the summer, and you all might have seen when you were trickling in, Bev, her colleague, also joined us, and they just wanted to provide some context on how this has helped them with Rutgers in their roles as well as with their students. Give y'all a second to read that. If you have any other questions and we don't get to them, please send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. As always, I get really excited about this framework and about the work that we do. I think you all are doing such incredible work, and I really appreciate you all showing up and engaging, especially since this platform is new to us. So I'm sorry if the breakout rooms were a little clunky, but we so appreciate your engagement and participation today. And your students are really lucky to have you. Carrie, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I just echo your appreciation for everybody joining and being flexible as we learn new skills in a new platform. We tend to be on Zoom a lot, so we're familiar with that, but we were provided training and we took advantage of it, and it was fun, and just we appreciate your dedication and support of students, and so us all working together to make a difference. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Take good care.